Hi, everybody, and welcome to Exegetically Speaking, a podcast of the friends and faculty of Wheaton College, Wheaton, Illinois, and the Lanier Theological Library in Houston, Texas. My name is David Capes, and I am the Senior Research Fellow at the Lanier Theological Library and a former dean up there in Wheaton at the School of Biblical and Theological Studies. Our purpose in these podcasts is really very simple. We want to promote the study of biblical languages, Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, so we can read the Bible more faithfully, study it more fully, and not just read it, but to live it. Joining me today on Exegetically Speaking is Dr. Jordan Ryan. He is Assistant Professor of New Testament at Wheaton College in Wheaton, Illinois. Jordan, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's good to see you. You've been at Wheaton now how long?
So 2 years on the tenure track, and a few years ago I was there for 1 year. It was in 2016, 2017 on the visiting track, but I'm really glad to be back.
Yeah, I know they're glad to have you, and you bring a lot to it. Now tell us how you got started reading biblical languages.
Yeah, so it was actually during my master's degree. And the reason I didn't start as an undergraduate, I did an undergraduate in religious studies focusing on Bible. But the thing is that I went into my undergrad doing a double major in philosophy and religion, thinking, maybe I'd want to go on and do grad work in philosophy. But it turned out that I was kind of a mediocre philosopher, but a pretty good exegete. So it was really in grad school that I started focusing more on exegesis. And so it was as a master's student, I did a lot of Greek really quickly. I went from my intro Greek course to a course called Greek Texts of the Roman Empire, which just blew me out of the water. It was really, really, really tough, but I think I'm better for it.
So where did you do that work?
Oh, yeah. So that was at the University of Toronto for my BA, and then my MA was at the Toronto School of Theology, which is the theological consortium at the University of Toronto.
Yeah. And did you have to read any inscriptions there in the Greek and Roman world?
Yeah, I did. So it was actually a really big part of what we did. And a few of the Greek courses there, we did a lot of inscriptional Greek, especially in the intermediate course, but also in the Greek text of the Roman world course, we did some inscriptions. I work as well on archaeology. And so getting some background in inscriptions was a good kind of entry point into some of that.
Well, you've done a lot with the material culture and also with the kind of church and synagogue kind of connection there in the early period. Tell us a little bit about that work.
Yeah, so when I started my doctorate, which was at McMaster University, I was really interested in doing more with material culture. And so the program I did there allowed you to do a minor. And so I did a minor in early Judaism, focusing on kind of material culture things, especially on synagogues. So I ended up on an excavation in Magdala, where a first century synagogue was discovered before I got there, but I got to work on it. And that led me to writing a dissertation on Jesus and synagogues. It's so far, I think, the only book ever published specifically on Jesus and synagogues. From there, I've done another book more recently looking at churches. I guess it's kind of natural. I finished what I wanted to say about synagogues and decided I had something to say about churches.
Yeah, so. But it could well be there's more to say about synagogues one day, right? There are more synagogues yet to be uncovered, I bet, there in Israel.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I'm not really finished with synagogues yet. I've got a lot more.
Yeah, I don't know that in scholarship anything is ever finished. Now, today we're going to look at James chapter 2, and it has the word synagoge in there, which is the Greek word for synagogue. Tell us a little bit about that text, first of all, and then let's get into that.
So I have been looking at James verses 2-4 here, and there's a really interesting little bit right at the start. So we have Eon gar iselthi is synagogin himon anir chrus dactylios en esthiti lampra. So just to back up a little bit, you probably heard the word synagogin in there, which is the word that everywhere else in the New Testament, except for here, is typically translated as synagogue. And in fact, it's the Greek word from which we get our English word synagogue. But really interestingly, if you look at the New Revised Standard Version or the New International Version or English Standard Version or most of the versions that tend to get used, here this word, synagogin, gets translated not as synagogue, but as assembly or gathering or meeting or something like that. And so that is kind of an interesting thing. It's something that you'd only pick up on if you're reading it in the Greek, is the fact that here we actually have the word that is typically translated as synagogue. And it's presented as the place where the audience that James is writing to is gathering and where they're actually meeting. But you'd miss that if you were just reading it in English.
So if we're in the book of Acts and we see the word synagoge, or if we're in one of the Gospels and we see synagoge, it's going to be translated synagogue?
That's right. Yeah. And pretty well every time.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that this is the one case where it's often not translated as synagogue.
Yeah.
And I have some suspicions as to why that is. I think it has to do with some assumptions that where James's audience is meeting is going to be something that we wouldn't call a synagogue. But that raises some questions. And one of the questions it raises is, what's the difference between a synagoge and an ecclesia, which is the word that we typically translate as church in the New Testament?
Right.
But that word, ecclesia, is actually kind of sort of a synonym for synagogue. They mean basically the same thing, assembly or gathering. And some texts even translate or use them interchangeably. So Sirach, for example, has all these different references to the same public institution that it calls both synagogue and ecclesia, depending on which passage and almost what the author is feeling like.
So let me ask this. Synagogue, is that more of a place that you gather or the people who gather?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's being a matter of some debate in scholarship. The reality is that it can refer to either, kind of the same way that Christians will sometimes use the word church to refer to the people that meet, as well as the building in which they meet. And so synagogue can also be used that way. It's referring to some sort of gathering or assembly. In the New Testament and in other Jewish literature, it's typically a Jewish place of gathering or assembly. And so that seems to be how it's being used here. It can be either the place where they gather or the gathering itself, and it's not clear which.
Well, it's interesting that I don't think Paul, and I'd have to go back and read Paul's letters. Paul, the author of the Gentile mission, in a sense, the apostle to the Gentiles, when he's writing to this assembly, he uses the word ecclesia, it seems like, exclusively. But here, James, maybe in more of a Jewish context, where people are accustomed to going to the synagogue to do synagogue things, read scripture, offer their prayers, maybe hear some sort of a homily of some sort. The word here is synagoge. So it seems like it's just buttressing and reinforcing the idea that James is addressing a very Jewish Christianity, as opposed to Paul's churches, which were mixed Jews and Gentiles.
Yeah, I mean, that may well be the case. It's interesting because for James, it really raises the question, is he talking about a group of people that are exclusively believers in Jesus who are probably Jewish? Or is he addressing a group of believers in Jesus who also go to a place called the synagogue or who meet with a group that is the synagogue of wherever they are? In other words, are they Christians who are still attending Jewish gatherings? Whereas for Paul, he uses ecclesia in a way that seems to refer to a very specific group of people who are followers of Jesus. But that word ecclesia, too, in the Septuagint, like in Judith, for example, gets used also to refer to the local synagogue as well. So it's important that we don't always draw these kind of hard and fast lines between the two words.
Listen, we have to leave it there. Thank you, Dr. Jordan Ryan, for being with us today here on Exegetically Speaking.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thanks to Ian Rosine, Rebecca Larson, and Silvio Vasquez, who helped us produce this podcast. Thanks as well to John Alonzma, our Wheaton-based director, who makes this podcast possible. We're grateful to Phil Keggy for our music. If you want to study biblical languages, then you need to consider Wheaton College. Whether you're an undergraduate or a graduate student, we have amazing programs, a first-rate faculty, and some of the best students in the world. So go to the website, www.wheaton.edu, and look for modern and classical languages. Get started today. If you have questions about this or any of our podcasts, we'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions or questions about any passage in the Hebrew Bible or Greek New Testament, send us an email and we'll see if we can get one of our experts to weigh in on that for you. Our email is exegetically.speaking@wheaton.edu. That's exegetically.speaking@wheaton.edu. Thanks for listening.